Yep, you're right. Well, they brought Marcus Wolf over to help them set up the Department of Homeland Security, Bob. I mean, they brought
Incredible.
the head of the East German Stasi over to help set this thing up. Now, that's a fact.
I used to work against him.
Yeah, it's a fact, and the sheeple don't know it. And if I have this conversation with any of my friends or colleagues, they laugh. They think that's I must be making that up because they don't know the truth. And because they don't know the truth, they think Alex Jones gets it right every time when he says that the yuppies like to laugh. They like to laugh at. He says magic wand. Oh, there's cancer in the vaccines. Magic wand. No, there isn't. Oh, there's fluoride in the water. Magic wand. No, there isn't. Oh, we're in 3 unconstitutional wars. And they're bankrupting us. Magic wand. No, we aren't. Silver is being suppressed. Silver used to be our money. Gold used to be our money. That's crazy. Magic wand. No, it isn't. These people are insane, and that's why I've made these documentaries, these microdocs called The Madness of a Lost Society, Bob, because this society is nuts.
Well, I think you're right, but it's not. It doesn't have any exclusivity. The whole world's that way. I roam throughout the world, and I spend most of my time in Latin America. And I play golf, so that's a sport that usually is among wealthy people. And so I talk to some of the most wealthy people in all of Central, South America, and Mexico. And I told them all over the last 8-9 years, my journey here, look, this is what you do, the things we talk about. And none of them did it.
Right.
And so then they get a hold of me and say, why didn't I listen to you? I said, we're only 1/3 of the way through.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't pay up. I said, you're going to lose everything you got.
Right. Well,
if you like playing golf, do what I tell you. If you don't like playing golf, then don't do anything and you'll lose it all.
Right. I just had an email exchange with a very close and dear loved one in our family, a direct family member, warning this person really for the final time about the inevitable collapse of the U.S. dollar and the fact that this person, who has quite a few assets, needs to protect themselves with gold and silver or gold and silver related assets. And you wouldn't believe the email I got back, Bob. It was one of the most insulting emails. It was very hurtful because this person essentially said, well, I've got other priorities in my life and I wouldn't spend as much money on your silver as you do, which is a strange way to phrase that, and said, God's bailed me out in the past, so I put it in God's hands now. And after I thought about it, Bob, I thought, well, maybe God is trying to protect you by putting me in your life to give you this warning, because this person's not hearing it from her financial advisor, and she's just being led down the path to being slaughtered, essentially. When this system collapses, everybody that invested only in this system is going to get crushed.
85% of the people are going to lose part of or everything that they have. And all you have to do is go back just 1,000 years in history. Although I've gone back further, the important thing is, you might call it modern times, from the Crusaders onward. And the same thing happens over and over and over again. They like the short side of the market, because they clean up, and there's nothing left for anybody else. In this case, this time, what they want is subject everybody to world government and enslave them, and at the same time, do away with 50% or more of the population.
Well, and it's interesting, though, Bob, and we don't have to dwell on this, but those of us who know what you are talking about, who understand the facts, those of us who know the truth, are the crazy ones in this society. And it gets me back to the madness of this sheeple mentality, this uninformed culture of essentially an idiocracy, that because they don't know the truth, because they don't understand the facts, we're the nuts. The ones who know the truth are the nuts. And it's absolutely, it's like living in the Twilight Zone, Bob. As you well know, you've been living it for decades. This is all new to me within the last 8 years, so I'm freaking out. I can't believe that this is the truth. Bob, I've got another question for you, and this one comes from SJB. He contributes some content on my site, SGTreport.com. And Stefan wants to ask you this. Because you're always traveling all over the world and talking to people about what is going on in their own country's local economy, do you have any sense on how a global hyperinflationary depression will unfold for people living outside of the USA and outside of the Eurozone countries? Specifically, how will some of the smaller currencies hold up and for how long? Now, I happen to know this particular fellow lives up in Canada. So, Bob, what's your take on his question?
Well, I'm glad you told me that, and as an abridgment to the question, I liken it to this: the United States, United Kingdom, and Europe will be tens, and that's the worst you can get. You've got countries like Canada, Australia, Brazil, Chile, Mexico, that'll probably end up being fives, maybe fours. So that means they'll be hurt approximately half as much as we will in the United States. A good example of that is the Mexican peso in the last 3 months just went up 5% against the U.S. dollar. And the government has been hedging the appreciation by using derivatives, and quite successfully. They in Canada both, without stimulus of any kind, are doing a 4.5% growth in GDP last year and this year. Unemployment in both places around 5%. And inflation is 3.3% in Canada and 3.7% in Mexico. Now, it's certainly a lot higher in the United States. My guess is 9.5%. John Williams, the famous economist, says it's over 10%. And probably he's right. But anyway, it's very high. And so, to answer your question, some are going to do better than others. Why? Because they didn't ravage their economies the way that the American and European, British economies have been ravaged. And it all emanates really from the speculation of and using through the creation of money and credit. That's where the whole problem lies. Wall Street, banking, City of London. I mean, that's the nexus. That's the heart of the real problem. And that's why once this system comes down, and it will come down for everybody in varying degrees. Once it comes down, we got to round these people up, take them to court, convict them of what they've done, and take away the riches that they defrauded the public of the world of. And the only way countries like the United States and Europe and England can really survive if they're going to manufacture, and they must manufacture. They have to reimpose tariffs on goods and services. British mercantilism, which today is called free trade, globalization, offshoring, and outsourcing, is killing those countries. We couldn't compete, and the other ones with us couldn't compete in the 1800s. Never mind now.
Right. Yeah, Thomas Jefferson and our founding fathers tried to cure that problem by giving us a true free nation with its own currency and money supply. But the bankers ultimately got they got what they wanted again in 1913. Let's just sum up and leave the folks on a good thought here as it relates to silver and gold. Gold's over 1,500, silver's over 46, on its way to 50. And I just want to remind people, and I want to get your take on this, Bob, that $50, this much vaunted all-time, quote-unquote, all-time high, that's just the nominal high. It's to me, it's meaningless, Bob, because $50 in 1980 money is about $140 in today's money. So what do you make of, because the media is going to explode when silver hits 50 next week or the week after. They're going to go nuts, and they're going to say, now's the time to sell because it hit its quote-unquote all-time high. Can you help educate us on what that really means, Bob?
Well, now you know why I'm on this program, because you're absolutely right. And my way of explaining it is from a trader's viewpoint. I've been in these markets for over 50 years. Now, let's picture, and I was there, 1980, $50 silver. And, of course, it went back down again. Now, it's assumed that there's resistance at $50 because people bought there and they're waiting to get out 40 years later. You know something? The average investor is about 55 years old. 55 and 40 is 95. They're all dead. There is no physical resistance. It's hogwash. So what will we experience? Propaganda, psychological warfare, They're going to attack you at 50. And all kinds of people are going to crawl out from their dens and holes in the wall and going to tell you it's a bubble, it's a mania, it's crazy, you're mad. And it goes right through 50 like it wasn't there.
Yeah.
Because nobody's listening to them anymore. Because they're known to be liars, just like the politicians, Wall Street banking. And so where is it going to end up? Well, that depends on JPM and HSBC. When do they want to call the game? At $60 silver, which I think will be attained easily, we're looking at $140 billion in losses. At $100 silver, I don't even know what the number is, and I don't even want to contemplate it. So I think, and I've said this before, I think they'll make their move at $55 to $60. And they'll say one of those three things. And that'll be the end of it. And the paper market will be, if not totally, and partially destroyed. And the physical market will become where it's at, and that's the way it should be.
Right. Well, and the last thing I would add to that, too, is that the psychological resistance at 50 is going to be very thin. I agree with you, Bob, because the other thing is that whole Hunt Brothers high, and back in those days, it was really maybe the English, maybe some of the European countries and the Americans were in on silver or whatever. But today it's a worldwide market. Do you think the Chinese care? Do you think that the Chinese citizen or the Indian citizen buying silver gives a crap about what happened in 1980 with the Hunt Brothers? They haven't even heard of it. There's no psychological resistance at 50. Great
perspective.
Well, Bob, thank you.
And that's what you all out there listening have got to have. You've got to get outside that box. You've got to stop listening to economists and analysts and newsletter writers, commentators who don't know a clue about what they're talking about. And especially the chartists, the wavists, and the cyclists, who have been wrong every time for the last 5 years. And they've cost people more money by keeping them out of the market. Look, we're in a long-term bull market. The trend is your friend. Buy and stay long.
Well, Bob Chapman of the International Forecaster, again, thank you so much for your time. We always really appreciate visiting with you.
Well, I thank you for having me, and I thank all the listeners for listening. And as I said, I don't have all the answers, but I try the best I can. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Fortunately, that hasn't happened too often, and so I wish you all well.
All right, Bob. Thanks a lot.
See you in 2 weeks.
See you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, that's it, guys. Thanks for watching, and thanks for commenting. Thanks, guys. Keep stacking.